the number one thing when you boil it down to brass tacks is fucking time in the woods.
Yep.
So that's the most
And toughness, and that's also equated with toughness.
And there's just a bunch of fucking tofu eating fucking man bun wearing dorks and no pussy at all. Yeah.
Hold down, baby! Is he down? Is he a big one? Is he down? Trying to get the damn shot.
Bullshit, man. Look at the thing.
Farm wearing shorts. Yeah. That sack fucking hanging out. Don't fucking doubt the fucking 6mm.
Shoot him, shoot him. All right, hold on. Hold on.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Those fucking Amish would have shot that motherfucker.
Got a face only mother can love. That's great. Today on the show, we have a guy that I'm assuming half of our listeners will know. Some will not. I respect his website and his podcast. I listen to it a lot. It brings in different points that I really respect. We have Adam Jonkey from Journal of a Mountain Hunter. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Really happy to be here. Appreciate you guys having me on and putting aside some time to, I'm going to assume, probably talk a whole lot of shit. So I really look forward to that.
I like shit talking. Let's start off with Yonke. How do you spell that shit?
Janke, German.
Okay. And is that a common German name?
I don't know. The one they gave me. I'm not.
The one they gave me.
See, I can talk shit because my last name is Bashady, and my last name's fucking weird too. So.
Yeah, no, I believe it is. You know, like it's not a common name here in Canada. You know, there's historically German pockets in the country where you'll find a few of us, but yeah, there aren't many Yankees rolling around the country as far as I know.
I would just go by that name. I wouldn't even have a first name. This is just fucking Yonke.
Well, guys, so that's what ends up happening. Nobody ever calls me Adam.
Oh, dude, if I knew you, if you're my buddy, I'd call you Yonke for sure.
Yep,
this is built in.
Yeah. Somehow I adopted, or the nickname came Yonkanov, which I can explain later. But that was the more common nickname with the hunting crew. Apparently I act like a Russian in the backcountry, and you can read reasons of that however you want.
Lots of vodka then.
I was thinking
more
of like
bourbon,
5 different Russians that you could be. You got to expand upon this.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll get to it. Maybe we won't. Probably better we don't. But
well, I gotta before I want you to give you like the brief history of Adam Jonkey before Journal Mountain Hunting and after, and why you started it. But the funny thing is I listened. Robbie Denning, I don't know if you've talked to Robbie before. He's the co-owner of Rockside.
No, I haven't.
And he wanted me to listen to this podcast. And this is early on from you guys. And all he could tell me was he's a foot guy.
He's a foot
guy.
guy.
And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean he's a foot guy?
Do you mean like he likes looking at women's feet?
Well, that's what I didn't know what Robbie was talking about.
He's a foot
fetish?
fetish?
Like, all I can remember is he was a foot guy. And I'm like, what do you mean by a foot guy? Like he's on fucking OnlyFans, or what are you talking about? And he's like, he's a Canadian and I think he deals with feet, but he has a website and a podcast. And I'm like, Robbie, we got to, anyways, kind of go into, then I kind of figured out what
he's not selling you well. Eh?
No, I'm like, why would I listen to a fucking foot guy? So anyways. Can you tell us a
Well, you see, I started with a foot fetish website. So then I went to the hunting. That turned out better.
That's a lot. That's like the Russian statement.
That was before OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Now he'd probably make it, but not back then.
Unfortunately, it meant timing. Always with the timing, boys. Too early on foot fetish.
Dude, if you would have started up now with OnlyFans existing and you'd have got Ryan Avery to join you, he has the most Hobbit-looking feet on the fucking... There's got to be a market for Hobbit feet, and he'd be in.
Hairy feet look like bricks.
And then he could wear the different Crocs, like maybe one different one on each foot, maybe no Croc, maybe, you guys would crush it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. the Hobbit feet thing doesn't surprise me. As a professional foot guy, if you showed me a picture of Ryan and said, what are his feet like? I would have said hairy Hobbit feet for sure.
There we go.
No doubt.
There is no doubt. Like, actually, you're the second or third person to tell me that. Like Barney Rubble fucking feet for sure.
Yeah. That's funny shit.
So tell us a history of how you're a foot guy and how you got it,
Yeah, gotcha. So, brief history. So I grew up Central Eastern Canada. I don't mean Eastern as in Eastern Coast, the Maritimes as we call them. Grew up in a farming, hunting, outdoors family. First love of hunting was whitetails, and still to this day have a thing for whitetails. Moved west in 2006, and this is where I got into the foot guy realm. I was still am. Frankly, I just don't practice anymore. But I was what's known as a Canadian board certified podorthist, which is not a podiatrist. I'm not going to bore you with the difference, but it's not, you don't call me a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Just kind of, we dabble in the same realm, and did that for a long ass time. Basically, dealing with foot, knee, hip, back injuries, but how we fix things, I guess, by making like custom orthotics or stretches, exercises, those sort of things. So that's what made me a foot guy. And then I started a company in that space, did that for a while, sold it, worked for the company that bought it for a couple of years. And it was around that time that the mountain hunting bug had set in real hard. Like I said, grew up a hunter. It was, one of my number one passions by far. Always dreamed of going and hunting west. And then when I moved west, I just dove right in and was looking for something new to do. Was kind of done with being a foot guy, frankly, more done with all the jokes about being a foot guy. Decided to leave that space and started Journal Mountain Hunting. And then eventually the Beyond the Kill podcast. So that's about as quick as I think I can rattle that off, boys.
So is the journal the website and then Beyond the Kill is the podcast? Is that the difference?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, back then, like that's 10 years this August for the website. You guys know this, Ryan, you'll certainly know this. Other than Rockslide and up here in BC, we had the Hunting BC forum. There wasn't a lot of like content dedicated to the Western or mountain hunter, right? Yes, sure, there was just some print magazines, but there wasn't a lot of material focusing in particular on like that, that real deep backcountry, in particular, whether it's BC, Alaska, the territories, the more rugged parts of the Rocky Mountain West, etc. Just wasn't a lot of content out there for that. And I was learning at the time. I mean, shit, I'm still learning, but I was really, trying to learn at the time. And I can remember, just sitting around waiting for the next, Sitka blog post or story to come out, or one of the Inside Kuyu, sort of photo essays to come out, and I'd just be like, oh God, like I just want to go do more and more of this stuff. And came up with the idea of the Journal of Mountain Hunting. At the time I thought of it as like a digital magazine. We used to do like a monthly quote unquote issue, which had a set number of columns or articles in it, and we'd have some advertisers and stuff in it. And then I think it was about 8 months after I launched that, decided to start the podcast, which, yes, was under the different name of Beyond the Kill.
Enhance your shooting experience with STOCKY'S stocks. Are you tired of struggling with mediocre rifle stocks that hinder your performance? Imagine having a high-quality rifle stock that not only enhances your accuracy, but also provides superior strength and a lightweight build. STOCKY'S Stocks offers a wide range of premium rifle stocks manufactured with hand layup carbon fiber construction, a patented carbon fiber AccuBlock, and multiple finish options. Whether you're a long-range shooter or a hunting enthusiast, our stocks are perfect for you. Experience unmatched precision and durability with STOCKY'S stocks. We provide stock installation instructions, technical support, and guidance to help you choose the right stock for your rifle. Upgrade your shooting game today with STOCKY'S stocks.
So, like, were you sitting there one day and said, fuck, I need to start something about backcountry hunting? Like Rockside was kind of started in a way of, We need more unbiased gear reviews that aren't kind of bought and paid for. What was the, I guess, why behind Journal of Mountain Hunter?
Yeah, it was basically the same thing. It wasn't so focused on unbiased gear reviews, but I respect the shit out of that. Love that. I got a funny story about those early days, Ryan, and Rockslide, because I think I got booted for going against foreign rules, but we'll come back to that. But anyways, it wasn't the unbiased gear review side of things. It was more like longer form content, right? Like back then, again, 10 years ago, you go to whatever, Field and Stream. You'd be lucky to find an article that went over 700 words, and it was, I went there, I did this, I shot that, and cool. It was kind of it. And I'm not just picking on Field and Stream. There's just a lot of content back then. This wasn't very in depth, and ironically, we've come full circle and back to the same bullshit. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to see, longer articles, longer stories, more photos, more about the experience. And, I don't want to get all philosophical and shit on it, but at the time, and even still now, there's a lot that goes into this stuff. It's sure there's easy hunts. There's a lot more hard hunts than there are easy hunts. And I want to hear all about it. Right. And so that was the idea. And then it just started to expand into gear and, shooting ballistics, optics, talk a lot about, physical prep, as much conservation material as we could cover, and just wanted it to be like longer form content and not be hemmed in, because this is what I kept hearing from other people in the industry. The reason that so much content had gone to shorter form was just printing costs, right? It's a lot easier to get a shorter article into whatever, 100-page or 70-page magazine, keep your costs down. Whereas online, that thing could be 7,000 words and there's no additional cost to it, right? So that was the real, intention behind it. Was just, we can go as long on a story or an article as we want. If it's better shorter, we'll do it short. If it's better longer, we'll do it long. And just not be restricted by that cost side of print.
Then the follow-on for the podcast would make a lot of sense if you're trying to hit that long format, because I think some of the best information now is coming out of podcasts.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And that was exactly it, right? We were talking before we started the recording here, like, why was it called Beyond the Kill instead of just, the Journal of Mountain Hunting podcast? I wanted to be able to go outside of pure mountain hunting content, still keep it, whatever, expeditions and adventure. But I mean, shit, going up to the north, the high north, and hunting polar bears. I mean, that's a cool ass story. I'd love to be able to, talk to somebody about that and not have it be like, well, that's not really mountain hunting. Like, what the hell are you guys doing? Mm-hmm. So the notion of Beyond the Kill was just gave me a little bit more ability to talk about things and have guests on that wasn't just that mountain western, backcountry hunting set of topics.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the best, like the things that kind of hooked me into your stuff wasn't just your podcast, but when you guys did, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on the area, but you did a late season BC goat hunt that you filmed. Mm-hmm. Dude, and how you portrayed, I get real tired of people, every fucking YouTuber out there that can't tell a story, but wants to be somebody. And they tell you we walked in here 70 fucking miles uphill both ways. We had 85-pound packs going in. The thing about your video is you didn't have to say a word about what you were going through, because you could tell on your faces, and you could tell everything was agony, in my opinion. You can tell me if we're wrong, but it just seemed like a lot of agony to get to that place you were at. Is that kind of how, is that what you were, obviously that's what you're going for in the story.
Oh, yeah. We were, we had, I don't know if you guys know, some of the listeners I'm sure will know Dustin Rowe, mm-hmm. Really, really well-known sheep guide at the time now outfitter. That is one of the hardest dudes I've ever been out in the mountains with. And even at one point he turns to me and he's like, what the fuck are we doing? This is total insane. Sorry guys, I don't know if I can cuss and curse.
Oh yeah. Yes. Drop it.
Yes.
Perfect. And I was, we were all hurting. But I remember he's, turned to me, says that, and turns around, keeps hiking. I'm like, Jesus, is Dustin saying that? Like, what are we doing? And so it was agonizing. The metric of stat from that trip, I think that kind of it captures it all. There was one slope we were trying to climb, and so the snow's waist deep. Packs or whatever they weigh, they were 150 pounds. No, the packs were whatever they were. We're in snowshoes, and there were 6 of us, and so the snow's waist deep and the slope's steep, and so we have to use our avalanche shovels to clear enough snow so we could lift our knees, and we would pack down with the snowshoes to build steps, and every guy would work for like 15 to 20 minutes. He'd be gassed. He'd go to the back. And then the next guy in line would do the same process, break and trail. It took us, I think it was 4 hours to go something like 700 feet vertical.
Mm.
Like,
was there a point in that video where you're like, we're not doing this anymore?
There were many points off video where we said we weren't going to do this anymore. We just didn't.
Like,
I mean, there was one point where we turned around, like it was getting just straight up dangerous. And then we moved to a different spot. And yeah, I mean, that's definitely one where, if I'd been solo or even with one other guy, I don't know that we would have seen it through, but because we had a group and, when 1 or 2 or 3 guys were down, there was always 1 or 2 or 3 other guys that were like, no, like, we got this. We can keep going. Whatever, right? But that was a hell of a hunt. One of my favorite hunts ever. One of my most memorable experiences by far.
Yeah, like all like you cycle through these YouTube videos, and I do like hunting YouTube channels, but a lot of them are crap, and not because the content's crap. It's just they can't tell a story. They don't have great videography. But yours was all encompassing in that aspect. So props to you, because there's not a lot of videos out there that you can see how shitty it really is. And you guys don't have to say a word. But I would also like to add in, was there a piece of gear? Cause it looked cold as fuck. Was there a piece of gear that shined out there to keep on that aspect of like the gear side of it?
For sure. It was, and Barco's going to hate me for this because I can't remember what the jacket was called. I'm sure you guys know, they just released that Hyper Down collection, right?
Wasn't it the Gore Windstopper jacket they had? Isn't that what you guys had?
That big ass puffy Gore Windstopper. It's like 90% down, 10% synthetic. That was, because it was, I don't know what this is in Fahrenheit. Maybe Ryan, you can do the conversion, but it was minus 20 Celsius most of the time. Most of the time, not the entire time, but most of the time.
So around 10.
10
15
I'm going to guess that's probably like negative 15-ish Fahrenheit, somewhere in there.
Negative 20. I don't know for sure.
Negative 20 C, so 0 C is 32.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's got to be right around 0.
Yeah, and I think they converge at around negative. I think around negative 30, they become the same. So I don't know what that was, but anyway, that jacket was the one that shined for sure, and that was
that temperature range is called cold. That temperature range is called cold as fuck.
That's correct. Yeah, I believe that at least up here our thermometers stop at minus 20, and then below that it's just colder stuff.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
Why the fuck are we here? That's the temperature. How did you guys keep height? Like I always think about in my aspect, and I haven't been in that deep of snow. I've been in that cold. I've been negative 40 deer hunting that was pretty bad, like backpack hunting, but I didn't have the snow. Like what was the water situation and like the nighttime sleeping situation, trying to stay warm in that and hydrated? What was it? Cause you didn't have fires, I imagine.
No, well, this is why I don't take teepees anywhere. But so we did pack in a teepee. And one of those collapsible stoves with the goal of being able to do some warming or drying in the teepee at night as like our cook tent, and then we would all sleep in our one-man tents for actual sleeping purposes. But north coast of BC, which is basically the same as Southeast Alaska, right? Just the amount of moisture there is like every drop of wood is just saturated, right? Like it's impregnated with water. even when it freezes, sure, it may seem high, but as it warms up, like it just won't light, right? Like it just will not light. And we even brought up like a fire log, but we saw it into pucks to try and like get enough to get kind of beat that factor, and it just never worked. So we didn't do fires. We did build one of the coolest, backcountry fires I've ever had. We'd moved to a different camp spot at one point, and then there was this old cedar dump that was like, I don't know, probably 10 feet high. Had broken off at some point. And we dug down through the snow to the base and started a fire in the base of it, and basically created like a backcountry oven. And that whole stump ended up lighting up. And needless to say, there were a few gloves and other products lost to flames.
Yes.
on that trip. But yeah, the fire side of things wasn't easy to do, and we didn't necessarily need to rely on it. We wanted it, but we knew we couldn't rely on it. And like I said earlier, I'm not a teepee guy because of trips like those, and it's also why I will not go anywhere with anything but a synthetic sleeping bag in BC, because it's just idiot proof, right? You can crawl into that thing soaking wet, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah. The water wise, were you melting snow?
We were melting snow. Yeah. I mean, there's those like where we were there, even at minus 25, we had some beautifully like clear sunny days, just cold. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you get these like gullies where the sun would just like cook these little creeks and streams, and they would still run, right? Like they were running fast enough that they weren't like frozen, like whatever, feet down. There was always a trickle. And so you'd be able to find some running water from time to time. And then otherwise, yeah, we were just melting snow.
Gotcha. That was, like I said, I couldn't give you enough credit. That was a great video.
I appreciate it, man. Really do. It was a fun ass trip. No,
it's like I said, I could beat that horse to death, but you didn't have to say a word. All you had to show it. You just showed what was going on, and everybody knew it was a fucking misery.
I feel bad for the camera guy, because the camera guy had to suffer the same way everybody else did, but he had to tell the fucking story.
And that fucking snow, dude. Like I've walked in that snow, and I can't imagine having all that shit and a camera, and you're just trying to get good video. And he did. He got great video. But yeah. Here's to the camera guy, even though we talk shit all the time.
And that's a great point, guys. Like, look, it's one thing to like suffer through that shit, but all you got to do is keep moving, do some glass and whatever. Those guys are worrying about 10 times more shit, having to capture the exact look on that dude's face. And he's probably hurting just as much as, almost certainly hurting just as much as we do. And yeah, our two guys, Connor and Steve, that were with us filming, a tag team, that they did an absolutely phenomenal job. And it turned out the way it did because of them, for sure.
I guess we didn't say, but somebody killed a goat, huh?
They did, yeah.
Okay, good.
Nolan, who worked with me for a long ass time, he killed him. Beautiful big Billy. I don't remember the measurements, but he was big.
Kind of shifting gears a little bit.
500 and something yards.
What was
500 and something yards headshot, for the record.
Headshot on purpose?
Yes.
No way.
Wow.
I can't
Only shot he
that
had.
part.
Wanted to anchor him.
And that he did.
No
that
shit. Like you're like debating this, and you're like, "Fuck it, we're just gonna shoot him in the head."
Yeah.
Because Jake's son likes to say that about bears, but I know he missed.
He headshot a little bear at like 575 there?
569, yeah.
569 at this spot, and of course, he says, I got him in the head. It was not a headshot intentionally.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was a hell of a shot, hell of a poke. His head was, we've been watching him on the bluff line for quite a while. And, again, credit to Nolan. He's laying down, those ZUS pads?
Yeah.
Like fold up, like almost look like Ed card. He laid one of those down, but it was only a 3/4 length. So he's laying down on that, on the gun, a couple of bucks spotting, and there's a few goats milling about, and there's actually a really big nanny in there too. But we were wanting a Billy, and so we we found the billy, and the wind just kept going one way, then the other way, and then up, and then it's blowing up, and then it's blowing down, and it was snowing, and so like the shooting conditions were pretty challenging. And the billy had moved into this little hole in the bluff line, and all you could see was his head sticking out of the alders. And the wind died, and Nolan was like, "I'm going to send it," and it was dead go on the spot.
That's a good poke. What was the cartridge and bullet?
It was a 6.5 PRC, and I'm trying to remember what he was running in those. I think they were 140s, and ELDX, I believe.
Okay, 143 ELDX.
143, thank you. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Gotcha. It was a Gunworks gun, wasn't it? If I remember right.
It was indeed. Yeah.
Was it a climber?
It was a climber. Yeah.
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 Watched a while back, but I still remember that part. Well, that's god dang a headshot. I'm not that ballsy. I'm not that good.
You gotta be pretty fucking good to just say I'm gonna headshot him.
Yeah.
Especially since that's all they could see was the head. It wasn't like, he said, I was aiming at the head later because you could see the whole body.
And like to back that story up, because like people are gonna hear that and say, man, that's total bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But I've been in those situations and I've made some hard calls and I made that I wouldn't always do. But a lot of times the situation dictates the outcome. And a lot of times when you're in that situation, like you're not doing things you normally wouldn't do. But at that point in time, you're like, we're all in right here. This is going to happen. And I can't describe that. You've been there, Adam. Jake's been there. And people that don't do this kind of shit don't grasp that, but they love to armchair quarterback the situation.
Yeah. Well, just to talk about, so at 500 yards, the goat's head's I think it's a fairly tall head for mammals, right? Like it's at least maybe an 8-inch target. What do you think? 8 inches tall?
Oh, easy. I mean, he was probably, from crown of his head to tip of his nose, he could have been 10, 11, maybe even 12 inches. Like,
in all reality,
horse face, right? So.
Yeah. At 500 yards, that's a 2-inch gun if it was 10 inches.
Yeah, and I don't imagine if the miss was off by much, he wasn't going very far. You're going to get another shot.
No, you can get away with goats in general. Like, the sound of a rifle going off, or like, you miss high, you miss low, you miss left, you miss right. Rocks are always falling in goat country, right? And sure, they might spook, but they also might not. But they might, just do a little turnaround and walk, 5 yards somewhere else, and you get another one, right? And to the point about like bullshit, he didn't do that. I mean, like you said, Ryan, like we'd hit a point of it's certainly not desperation. I don't want that to be what people take away from this. Like, oh, we shoot caution to the wind and just fucking start and send it lead. That's not it. He was behind that gun in position, dry firing for 30 minutes, right? Easy. Before the shot actually presented itself. And again, like there was nannies knowing about there, like he just didn't have a shot, but he got into position, got himself settled. And, he didn't lay down to say, I'm going to shoot this goat. He's like, I'm just going to lay down and see how I feel. And the longer he laid there, other than getting colder and colder and colder, he got more and more comfortable with taking the shot that was presented. And, if he missed, I mean, the nice thing, in a weird way, I guess, with a headshot was if he missed, it likely would have been a clean miss, and the goat likely would have moved and we might have got another shot, or, we would have gone back to camp and tried to find him the next day. And sure, that, like you said, somebody's going to armchair quarterback that, call bullshit, call us idiots, whatever it is. But we put a lot of time and training in before that hunt to be really comfortable with challenging shots and challenging conditions.
Yeah. And like from my situation, I've made a couple long shots and there's no 100% shot even at 100 yards. But my thing, talking to myself, it's like, is this a high probability shot? And would I be super shocked if I missed? And if the answer is, no, I'm like, I'm taking the shot, and I've been there before. So I can play your situation out in my head, and some people can't. And that's the sad fact.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of remember talking to Aaron from Gunworks years and years and years ago. And, when they were one of the, I guess I could only put only people putting out a lot of content around long range shooting. I'm not saying they were the only ones doing it, but they were putting out a lot of content about it, right? And I kind of had said, like, how do you answer the whole, the 1,000-yard shot's unethical? And he's like, well, I think a 100-yard running shot on a deer is unethical, or a 50-yard shot running shot on a deer or some other animals unethical. And I really liked that comparison, because I grew up with, doing drives and pushes for whitetail. We want to talk about something that's hard as shit to hit, running through timber, try and hit a whitetail, moving as fast as they can through the timber. Why do you think a lot of people use buckshot? We're not talking about precision shooting here, right? So, I think it's easy to look at something and be like, oh, that's wrong, that's bullshit. But you got to look at other scenarios and compare it and really make a judgment based on actual comparison, not just the one thing that you're trying to judge.
Couldn't agree more. I have another kind of changing topics, but I listened to you and Colton's podcast, and you said something that I think about a lot, and I think a lot of reasons that shoot to hunt exists now, rock slide exists, and I think why Journal Mountain Hunting Works exists is, you said you feel empathy for a new hunter. Do you remember this conversation you had?
I do, yeah.
And I think about that a lot, because if you're coming onto Rockside and if you're listening to the mainstream people on the Rockside, they're telling you need 5K worth of shit before you even get started. And that's just not true. So I guess my question is, you explained it pretty well, so I'll let you tell our audience, how would Adam go about telling a new hunter, not necessarily like the footsteps, but what would your A, B, C, D for a new hunter? Who would Adam, who would you tell people listen to? What would be your, I guess, your I can't find the word, but what would be your response or guide if you're guiding somebody who wants to be a hunter?
Oh man, that was a good question. Where like my knee-jerk reaction is a bit of a like flip a coin, right? Because on the one hand, I've been pretty vocal for 10 years now that like I legitimately want people to get out there and like get after it. Chase crazy up, dream, expedition. I would even say, like, don't be afraid to bite off more than you can chew, because at some point, none of it, 5K, 25K, doesn't fucking matter. You just have to be able to figure shit out when you're out there, right? Like there's that part of me. And there's part of me that's also, a lot of people that go and do that, spend too much money, go on a 10-day sheep hunt, self-guided, or an 8-day elk hunt or whatever it is. I don't want to say they have no business being out there, but they're just not ready, right? They're just not ready for that. And I say that not because, I know a whole bunch of shit, because I've been in that position. Like, remember, I grew up in the East, not in the West. I've been learning this whole time, and I'm still fucking learning. So I think it's some, and I don't have the answer exactly on this, and I'm not trying to dodge the question, but there's some sort of thread in the needle of, tough enough, long enough, deep enough, whatever, crazy enough to figure out if this is something you really want to do every year. Because guess what? If you want to be good at it, you need to do it every friggin' year for many, many, many days a year, as many days as you can fit in. There's almost like a stress test, I think, where you got to start, whether that's a 2 or 3 day backpack mule deer hunt or whatever it is. Like, pick your poison. I mean, shit, even if you live in the East, there's wilderness areas you can go and try and find a whitetail out in the, big public land tracts. So, if we're talking like Western mountain backcountry hunting, I think at some point you don't want to figure out if you're the kind of guy or gal that actually wants to be out there on day 3 of a planned 10-day hunt when you got flown in and you can't get out until they are coming to pick you back up, because that's the schedule. Yeah. That's a bad experience. And then, so to me, that's kind of the start. So that would be one, again, to give it not really a non-answer, but I think it still applies, is don't get hung up on the outcome, focus on the process. Don't believe everything you see on social media. Everyone's whacking and stacking left, right, and center. Of course, we all go out there to cut a tag and kill something. But, you know, we all get lucky at some point, but consistent success comes from learning, constantly knowing what to do at a given point in time. So don't get hung up on, I need to get a ram, or I need to get a 300 plus inch elk, or whatever. Pick your numbers on muleys. Like, we all like big animals, or most of us do. But it's hard to get there if you're not willing to earn your stripes along the way, I guess. And then third is, if you're thinking, do I need to spend more money on my gear or on my skills? Spend it on your skills, not on your gear.
Absolutely.
I think guys are worried a lot about being new hunters, spend a lot of time worrying about being comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all this gear and all this research and everything that you're doing is really all about being comfortable in the end. And yeah, experience in the field will tell you that, you know, you probably can't predict what kind of weather you're going to be into, or, if one rain jacket's going to perform better than the other, or I don't know.
Yeah.
It's also like this year-long thing. We all like to, we're all gear junkies for the most
Absolutely.
part. And, but in the end, like the new hunters, it shouldn't be a gear junkie focus, definitely.
No, because if you boil it down to, I know lots and lots of successful hunters, and I talk to hunters all the time. And I would say, if you're looking at what I consider like the best public land hunters in the United States, you put like Ryan Lampers, you're talking deer. It's like Robbie Denning, Travis. There's a lot. I could name a lot, and there's a lot of people I would miss. But the number one thing when you boil it down to brass tacks is fucking time in the woods.
Yep.
So that's the most,
and toughness, and that's also equated with toughness. Like, how many days can you spend?
Yeah, and it's time. And those guys, unfortunately, if you were to ask them, does their success relies a little bit on family? Their families suffer a little bit. It's how far do you want to take it? Yep, it is. It's time. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. Well, and on that same note, right? Like, I was just talking to somebody this morning. Maybe a little bit more specific in terms of feedback for a new hunter, but let's say you're somebody who's like, I want to get out west, or you've mostly day hunted, or, whatever, truck hunted, little forays here and there from your vehicle, but you're like, no, I want to go, backpack for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is. Or maybe you want to come out for elk or something. There's hunts like, say, black bear in the spring that don't have to be nearly as intense. Easy to get over-the-counter tags in most places you can hunt black bears. And it's a good training and proving ground for, again, do I like this? Do I want to be out here? Does my gear work? Are my skills what they need to be? And guess what? You're going to be in the woods. You're going to be learning stuff. You might see signs. You might see critters that you want to chase in the fall. Like, stuff like that. Sort of like a 101 level hunt before you jump to a 401 level hunt. I'm not saying you have to do that, but I think it's going to help you when you want to go on those more advanced or more demanding hunts later on. Because, look, you can have a hard black bear hunt, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have to be either.
Yeah. And I'm insulated to it because I've been hunting since I was 8 years old, but I would consider I'm in this industry. So I have a question about a particular thing. I usually can call somebody that's done it 50 times, but man, I was sitting there thinking after listening to your podcast, it is fucking daunting. If I didn't have any mentor and I just moved to Montana, or I moved to Idaho, and by God, I'm going to go elk hunting. Elk hunting's coming up, rifle hunting in Idaho is next week. I'm going to go elk hunting. I was like, fuck, where would I start? And I don't have good answers. I don't know where I would start elk hunting in Idaho, and I don't know what that would pull up, but I bet you'd be a lot of bullshit before you found some gems.
Yeah. Well, in general, any good hunter doesn't want to give up their good hunting spot.
No.
So you already start off with a fucking disability because no one wants to tell you really where to go if you actually want to kill something.
Yeah. And I never thought about that until you said you felt sorry for them, and I would too now.
Well, but on that point, right? Like, that's why, it's such an overused thing to say, the whole, process, not outcome. But that's kind of what I'm saying, right? Is like, if you just move to Montana or Idaho or British Columbia or Alberta, and you're like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to kill a 340 bull with my bow, and you've never done it before, it might happen. Hell yeah, if it does. But don't look at that as I expect to come home as a meat. Look at it as I expect to learn a shitload, and then I'll apply that the next year. and then the next year, and then the next year. And eventually, like, this is kind of my, whatever, bone to pick with a lot of where the content's at these days is, to expect immediate success. And that's just world in general now.
Yes.
But to expect immediate success kind of misses the point of this,
Yeah, you don't see a lot of pictures of 4x4 elk, but you see a lot of pictures of big elk. It's just like it's just like weightlifting. Like you see the little guys coming to the gym and they're just getting started and they're staring at you or whatever. And yeah, you have to, if you don't enjoy the process of going from A to Z, then the outcome really isn't that special. It's just like, what is pleasure without pain? All that good shit. Well,
process is a success.
I'm still a lot different than Ryan. So I'm very young in my hunting life, and I still love, a good 5-point. It doesn't bother me to shoot a good looking 5x5 that might not even measure 200. I don't know. But, as you get older in your hunting life, I could see where I can become like Ryan. But yeah, if you don't enjoy that learning experience and getting in the woods and literally teaching yourself how to do it, if you don't have a mentor, if you don't enjoy that part, it's going to be tough.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And maybe the pursuit's not for you, because if it's just about what you can share, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have this.
I don't mean like share the meat with friends and family.
Yeah.
I mean, just like, hey, look what I did. If it's just about that.
Yes.
I think you're going to have a hard time getting to that point.
What got me through like the early part of the hunting fails, let's say, is the whole hunting with my son thing. It's so much more fulfilling to see a young man kill something, no matter what the size of it is, but you're kind of out there for him, I guess, rather than just yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can make things a little easier to get started. Like you're out there, just like you said in your group, there's 3 people in the group that are ready to quit, but the other 3 are pushing forward, and then it flip-flops back and forth and you're all supporting each other. So I think having either a hunting mentor or get out there and do it with your kid, like these are maybe some of the things that can make the startup just a little bit easier.
Yeah. And
for sure.
And like the fortunate part is like, I kind of live in an echo chamber a little bit too. A lot of us do. And literally when I started bow hunting, I met a guy, I ran into him. I was like 17 or 16 years old. I ran into him elk hunting in the woods. I ran into him the next year, and I ran into him the third year, and he was in his probably late 40s, early 50s, been bow hunting his whole life. And he said, well, if you're going to keep fucking up my elk hunts, you might as well hunt with me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that guy's name is Dave Vishneski. He's a Polak, and he is about 5'4". He was a timber cruiser. Toughest little dude I ever met. But he taught me in literally 2 weeks of hunting, he taught me more than I would have learned in probably 10 years of doing it on my own. Mm. And most people don't have that. And I got to remember that.
Mm. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, but Ryan, like to that point, man, like, when you talk about like how to start and how hard it is, to find a mentor or somebody willing to share, like, tell somebody try to find somebody and say like, I'm just willing to pack fucking meat. I don't even have to carry a weapon.
We'll bring those guys
you're
along.
Still gonna learn, right? You're still going to learn.
Yeah.
And guess what? You're going to save, 6 to 12 pounds of carrying something around that you don't really, probably will never even use anyways, and learn from somebody who really knows what they're doing, pack meat and all that stuff. And I'm not saying there's, hundreds of, or even thousands or whatever guys out there that are willing to do that. But if I'm somebody, you'd be surprised. I mean, people would be like, hell yeah, I'll take someone to help me pack meat. Just, do exactly what I say, exactly when I say it. Otherwise, keep your mouth shut and ears open and let's go.
Is there like 2 or 3 people that you like look up to and look at their information all the time out there in the world?
So Barkley's one for sure. Snyder is another one for sure that I always find that I can learn something from. And then I could name off a handful of like guides and outfitters that I'm close with here in BC. That the irony of this, right, is I find that this is a very general statement, and it doesn't apply totally because there's a lot of great people. Lampers, I don't know Lampers, but I always like to look at his content because like you said, guys, the dude gets it done. on a very consistent basis. And I think he tries to educate quite well. But then, where I was going with that is I feel like a lot of the guys I've been lucky enough to meet don't want to share anything publicly.
Yes.
Right. Like they want nothing to do with the quote unquote hunting media space. But there's one of my good buddies, he's not super active on social. But he just killed his 10th bull, nice 340-inch bull, like a week ago. He's a guy I turn to for a lot of advice on elk. There's people I go to for advice on sheep. So it does for me, I guess. Generally speaking, the two that come to mind would be Snyder or Barklow, and in particular Barklow. Like I learned a lot from him. Everything I know about gear or how I approach gear comes from Barklow. But then it comes down to species specific stuff.
Yes.
Like I know who I want to turn to on a given species when I know I need some help. And that's the other thing too, is don't put your pride in front of it. Like don't be afraid to say, like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. What do I need to do? What am I doing wrong? Those sorts of things. Like I feel like humility is not a very common thing in our business these days, and you'd be surprised what people will give you if you just show that you're willing to say, like, I'm lost here, help me out.
Hi, I'm Brent Jarbo, CEO of ADG. For the past decade, we've been dedicated to crafting the highest quality, 100% American-made rifle brass to meet all your hunting and long-range shooting needs. This year, we're excited to introduce our new 6.8 Western and 270 WSM cases. With over 250 years of combined industry experience, we're committed to excellence. Look for our distinct orange boxes wherever you buy your reloading supplies. Whenever you need quality rifle cartridge cases, choose ADG Premium Rifle Brass, where precision meets performance.
Yeah, I read it the other day. I've never seen. There's a guy said, I've never seen so many experts so fast.
Exactly.
That is very true. You talk about like people will never know that are just absolute killers. That guy Dave I'm talking about, he has probably shot 50 to 60 6 points in his life. He'd hunt three states a year, and mostly all with a stick bow. And you will never hear, like, nobody knows about him. And he's an absolute elk savant. Yeah. It's just crazy. There's lots of those guys. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I told people I was coming on, a few people I was coming on, and people had a few questions for you. One was, will there ever be grizzly bear hunting in BC again?
Oh, dude. We can only hope. I mean, we were just talking about this on a podcast I recorded yesterday. We've got a provincial election coming up. So for those of you down the U.S., our provinces are like your states, just in case your Canadian geography is not up to snuff. And there are rumblings. There are rumblings that we might get it back. When it happened, the prevailing wisdom was once it's gone, it's never coming back. But I am hearing that it could. I wouldn't take that bet, down in Vegas, and I wouldn't hold my breath for it. But there is a chance. There is a chance that we could get it back. But I'm not sure what the odds are on it. But all I can say is it's not a hard no. I'll put it that way.
Interesting.
There are rumblings that we could get it back.
And the other one was on, you're a sheep, like I guess more in the sheep goat kind of guy. Mm-hmm. Can you explain how like the tag system works in Canada? Cause everybody thinks it's just like a free for all for sheep tags. Like if you wanted to hunt a stone sheep or a doll sheep or a bighorn sheep, how does that work in Canada? As a resident, sorry.
Well, so that'll vary. Yeah. No, that's all good. Yeah. That'll vary from one province to the next. So I can only speak to BC. I've never hunted in Alberta. And I'm not the guy to ask about the way it works in Alberta. I can say there are general open seasons in Alberta for bighorns. They don't have stones or dolls in bighorn, or excuse me, in Alberta. There are general open seasons. Some of them are bow only. Some of them are allowed for rifle. But here in British Columbia, in a way, it is a bit of a free for all, right? In that I can buy a what we call a mountain sheep tag, and this is where it gets nuanced. But I can buy a sheep tag every year over the counter, and there are general open units I can go to for Rocky Mountain bighorns, California bighorns, and stones for sheep hunting. Dolls, our dolls are limited entry only, which is our version of like a lottery system, but it's pure random. There's no points or anything like that. Like it's just you apply, and if you draw it, you draw it, right? So our dolls are LEH only. Where it gets, I can't say annoying, because when you can buy an over-the-counter sheep tag every single year for like $65 or $70, I can't really complain. But what's weird about how we do it in BC, and this actually is a version of this for elk as well, is that that's why I said it's a mountain sheep tag. You can only kill one of those species, right? So you can't kill a doll, a stone, a Cali, and a Rocky on 4 different sheep tags in the same year. I'd love someone to explain it to me. I don't know why that is, because it makes no sense. You're not seeking, like if you take out a stone ram, that has zero impact on the doll population, has zero impact on the Calis, and has zero impact on the Rockies, right?
What you're throwing something in there that I don't know. Is that a desert bighorn, a Cali? What is that?
No. So a California bighorn is not, so from a wild sheep foundation perspective,
mm-hmm.
And I can't speak to SCI or GSCO or anything like that, but the Rockies and the Calis aren't actually considered separate. So if you kill a Cali or you kill a Rocky, either one of those will count for your quote unquote bighorn part of your slam. A desert is not a Cali. So a California bighorn, so Calis struggle to grow full curl, just the way their horns grow. I don't know why they're called California bighorns, to be honest, because they've been in BC for, I think, as long as we know. And then the Rockies are considered yet another subspecies within the wild sheep population. But yeah, they are different. They are different.
But you can hunt a freaking sheep every year
if you want to. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's changing, right? Like just to finish the point there, guys. A lot of that's changing, right? Like it used to be able to go to certain parts of the province, and there's a ton of general open zones or units for, say, Rocky Mountain bighorns. A lot of those are transitioning to these limited entry zones, which again, that's that lottery where it's just random chance. Same goes for the Calis, the California bighorns. And we might see it come for stones. There's a lot of rumblings that is going to happen. So it's likely to change, whether that's a year from now or 10 years from now, I don't know. But right now, back to your point, you can hunt sheep every year if you want for $65, $70.
We have lots of open elk units that are over the counter for elk, and they may sell 5,000 tags or whatever, but there's like a 2% success rate. So similarly, I mean, although you can hunt a sheep every year there, what are the actual success rates for guys like yourself that are in the game versus, the standard over the counter type of guy? I mean, are you killing a sheep every year?
I'm not. I still haven't killed a ram, guys. So I'm not going to sit here and talk like I'm some fucking, sheep assassin by any stretch. I spent a fair bit of time in the sheep mountains. But haven't cut a tag on a ram yet. In terms of success rates, I've actually never seen any published data on that. I mean, this is another part of BC. I'm not going to get these numbers right, but years ago I heard that. You guys know what the annual wildlife management budget is in Idaho, off chance?
No, I did at one time, but I do not know.
It was a big number, I can't remember if it was 40 million or maybe 140 million. I feel like it was a big number.
Oh, there's
and that was just for Idaho.
There was like $8 million for wolves. So yeah, it's big. It's big.
Yeah. So it's big, right? BC's was like whatever the Idaho number was, BC's was like a third of it for all of British Columbia. And just so people understand, you can fit Texas inside British Columbia like 2.5 times. It's a big fucking place. And you've got a lot of species, and we just don't have the budgetary support from a whatever a jurisdictional perspective to really manage as well as I frankly think we should, but that's a whole other discussion. So I can't remember why I started down that path.
Looking at percentage of people killing sheep.
Oh yeah, like the success rate. So the point being is, I don't even know how much of that. I know they submit or they send out like a harvest questionnaire every year. My understanding is that's random. They just pick a number of the licensed hunters and send them to them, and it's a generic list or a generic set of questions. Did you hunt this species? What's the closest watershed? Were you successful? Were you not? But I haven't seen any published success rates.
That is so far.
I
how
would
they
bet,
treat sheep everywhere else.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Hence why we want to invade.
I would bet it'd be probably comparable. Sorry, guys. I would bet it'd be pretty comparable to like success rates low hunting elk. I would bet it somewhere in that 10% range. But I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong.
And I'm like ignorant to the terrain of BC. I know part of it's like North Idaho, just a big brushy shithole. But do you have like bigger open, like alpine areas you hunt these sheep? Are you hunting these sheep in brushy shitholes?
No. I mean, you do find stones in the timber. You certainly find bighorns in the timber, like around timber line, and sometimes even down low. Should I glass a ram? I don't know, a few hundred feet above the valley bottom, where I also saw an elk years back. But the thing with like we've got some big ass mountains in BC in the actual Rockies that continue up from the U.S. But a lot of places where you're hunting stones, the mountains aren't actually that high from like an elevation perspective. So timberline, even if it's only halfway up the mountain, is still, it's not like they're dropping 6,000 feet to get the tree line, right? They're dropping a few hundred to maybe 1,000. So you're not going to get them in the the sort of that Idaho or the Kootenai type like fucking jungle. You're not finding them in that sort of stuff. And yeah, we've got all sorts of different terrain here. I mean, where I live, I'm in Kelowna now. It's a lot like say Boise, right? Like it's pretty open. I mean, it can get thick and nasty for sure, but we've got big open, meadows and glassable terrain and stuff like that. So it's pretty varied, and I don't mean specifically for sheep, but just the terrain and topography here is pretty varied. You can get a pretty good mix.
All right. Well, my last question will get you go on to bigger and better things. Progression from rifle cartridge from the start of when you started hunting to what you're using now. How has it changed?
Oh, Ryan, that's an interesting question, because I think Colt and I were even talking about this.
That's a little bit why I asked you this.
I think I said this with Colton. Before I moved west, I at some point had come across the 300 Weatherby, right? And I just became absolutely fascinated with the cartridge. And, I can't even explain it. I can't explain why, but the idea of, fast, flat, and hard hitting, just whatever, it clicks for me. I'm like, that's what I need. And obviously, if we just think about, the ballistics and your corrections, et cetera, that's great. And the reason I say that is there was a very long time where new, hot, fast, and flat was what I really liked. But I find myself lately kind of coming back to the old standbys. Like one of my favorite guns to carry right now is a 308, 20-inch barrel, 2.5 to 8 by 36 Leupold VX3 on top. And am I about to get roasted, or are you like, what do you laugh about?
We have a forum on, everybody knows who he is on Shoot On. He said, all you really need is a fucking 308. And we argue as long as the day is long about fucking calibers and cartridges. But his thing is everybody needs a 308 and everybody should hunt with a 308. Just funny you saying that. Go ahead.
I mean, can you walk into a store and not find it? You know, is it the most skookum sexy cartridge out there? No, but I mean, as the saying goes, I'd love to know how many animals have dropped to a 308 in North America in the past 100 years. You know, and so and for me, like I get to answer the question, Ryan. Mm-hmm. If I've gone from a focus on the caliber cartridge, whatever, to I know what I want to carry, mm-hmm. and I'll choose something to suit what I want to carry. Like this 308 I have, like bush bashing. You know, I was out elk hunting last week and found this wallow in the thickest damn shit ever. And in my head, I'm like, if I can get this bull, I'm going to call it the tunnel rat bull, because that's what I'm going to have to do to find them in their beds. Because they ain't call them. Is this weird ingrown shit that they're just finding their way through. And you better believe I want something small, manipulable, that is going to do the job. And, you know, so that's, I know it's kind of a non-answer, but it's kind of the same thing as skills and gear, right? It's less in the weeds and more on the, like, what do I want to carry? What do I know I can shoot and use well? What do I know the limits of? And I'll rely on my skills with the gun itself or hunting, stalking, etc. for the rest. You know, it's kind of where I've landed these days.
To move the goalpost on you a little bit, if you were whatever once in a lifetime hunt you wanted to go on in Canada and you got it, would you take a 308?
I think it depends on the species.
Like, let's say it's,
you know, right now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a big mule deer hunt. Say it's the best mule deer hunt in Canada, in BC. You're taking a 308.
Oh, you got me on that one, I think. Maybe.
This is the arguments we have every day. So I'm not laughing at you. It's just, it's funny to be able, we like put through all these scenarios out, and then we change it a little bit, and then they're like, and even I'm guilty of saying, ooh, well, I've landed on a 6UM, which will pretty much do everything I want to do. But when I hear like the slower, fatter, you know, more the slower, to my like less whiz bang cartridges, I'm like, well, what if? And then they always change their mind.
Just tell them potentially there's an 800-yard cross canyon shot to kill that mule deer.
Yep. Tomorrow you could have to shoot 702 yards.
So then, no, it's I mean, again, and I think this kind of point, right, is, you know, there are a lot of mule deer killed in BC that are in thick, dark, nasty timber, and you might catch one in a meadow or on an open slope, right? But that's like, this was my obsession with the 300 Weatherby, is I want the canyon crosser. Right? Like that was my mindset. I was like, oh, the only where the only place you find them out west is in big canyons and open country and blah, 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 blah. So I think it would depend on the unit and my expected shooting scenario, right? And so if I had to go, well, it might be in the timber at last light, or it might be a 800-yard cross canyon shot, but no, I'm not going to take the 308.
Okay.
I would take something.
Fair enough.
Yeah, go ahead.
I asked Kurt Roscoe the same question on a podcast, and I asked him what, you know, he's Mr. Ultra Lightweight and he's Mr. Efficiency. And this was way back when he has switched and done well at the 6UM, but he said, yeah, I hunt with a 3378 and 11 pounder. I died laughing. So it's just a great question for people.
Well, because he's been cutting like fucking quarter ounces off all his other gear, and he has this monster of a fucking rifle with a monster cartridge.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's.
I remember talking to Kurt years back, and he was saying like that's his go-to, right? His go-to is that 3378, and I remember just being like, really? Wow. I mean, I guess that's why I cut so many ounces, right? So he can carry that thing.
That's right.
And we're both. I have that wrong. It was a 378 Weatherby. That's what he was hunting with. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
and it was, he said it was more than 11. It was like 12, 13, which that's why I like asking you these guys these questions, because we don't ever get the response that we think. And it's great podcast material, in my opinion.
Well, and I think, like, look, guns and ammo aren't cheap, right? So I'll preface what I'm about to say with that. But, coming back to like experience and the process, et cetera, is like, get out there, and if you got a buddy that's got something you're interested in shooting, like, go shoot it, and, shoot some rocks in the backcountry, and yes, be safe, and blah, 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 disclaimer. But like, find what you like, find what you want to carry around, like, guys, like, I get it, but, you could spend all day, every day in the weeds on this stuff. But, like, I've never been, I'll put it this way, I would never carry something that requires a 24 plus inch barrel. Amen. I'm not going to do it. That's just, it's not my style.
And I'd be willing to bet so you're more efficient with that 308 than 90% of the people out there with the newest whiz bang cartridge too. So there's always that aspect.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. But this is kind of the point, right? Is like, I've shared this on our podcast a bunch, and I don't want to repeat it over and over again, but like, I wasn't allowed to shoot a scoped rifle until I was proficient with a lever action 30-30 on a moving target. And so my uncles were my hunting mentors, and we would set up they put this clothesline system with these little, motors on them, and we'd make deer shaped cardboard cutouts, put two guys on the line, 50 yards, and this thing would run around on the motors around the clothesline. It'd be target 1 be the guy on the right, target 2 be the guy on the left, and you got to put 3 into the vitals, right? And we'd score it, and they'd have like little trophies and stuff like that. I was not allowed to shoot with a scope rifle until I could do it with open sights, 30-30. My grandfather's had a fucking steel butt plate on it from 12. Like, that felt good,
Oh, damn. No, open sights or peep sight?
Open.
Wow.
Like,
that's rough.
Yeah. And yeah, at the time I was like, oh, what? Like, why are my uncles such hard asses and whatever? But now I look back on that and think, like, shit, I'm so grateful for being exposed to a lot of different rifles, a lot of different actions, a lot of different shooting positions and scenarios. And, I think that's another thing that the newer hunter could, again, like, spend your money on training and skills over gear, is go to a shooting course, go to get yourself using whatever the gun, whatever the cartridge is, use it.
Yes.
And use it in tough situations and comfortable positions. And, lethality matters.
Yes.
Right.
Form always say the dude that has a 308 probably knows how to use it.
Exactly. Right. And so, I think, again, we can get into the weeds on this stuff, which I love to, but, shoot more.
Shoot more.
Shoot more.
We're over.
In summary, shoot more.
Shoot more. Is that like, we're at an hour. Do you have any closing thoughts, and where can people stalk you at?
So closing thoughts is shoot more, then shoot some more, and then shoot some more. drillmountainhunting.com, handle on IG is @BeyondTheKill. If you're looking for daily updates of how hardcore I am, don't bother going to the account, because there's none of that there. And listen to guys like you guys and what you got going on. And I mean, I guess other closing thought is be careful who you follow and listen to. There's a lot of those fast experts rolling around.
Yes. Well, thanks for coming on the show. We'll definitely have the video in the show notes for that goat hunt. And I suggest everybody go and see how a video should be produced. So, Adam, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, pleasure, guys. Yeah, thanks to you both. Really appreciate being invited on, and good luck over the rest of the season to both of you.
Yeah, you too.
You too. Thanks, Adam.